Why does this always happen?
Hello and welcome to House of Bards. We've been away for a bit, but we are back now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Bethany, and
I'm Alex.
So we have been away for a bit due to things like travelling and a bit of sickness here and there. But we are back now and hopefully back on track. So we are sorry for the slightly extended hiatus. We are a podcast about role-playing shows and the slightly...
Shows?
We're not role-playing games.
Yeah, I feel that would probably be more relevant.
Anyway, role-playing games, and we are the more shared narrative, telling stories together, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And today's topic is non-playable characters, and the interaction you have with them, and the weirdness that can arise from them.
I know it's like kind of specifically non-player character rather than non-playable character, because it's like in a tabletop role-playing game, somebody is always playing.
Character. That's true. The NPC is more of a designation to their, I guess, role, really, because they kind of, they're quest givers and they're merchants and they're interactable characters, but they're not who the players are controlling, they're who the DMs are controlling, or the GMs, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the two of us have both run games with, you might say, memorable non-player characters in them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not like to say that all of those characters are just like characters who had a gimmick that stood out or something like that. Is that some of them were intended to be, focal points of the narrative who could stand out as characters.
Generally, my way of doing NPCs is I throw a lot at people at once. I think very quickly I've introduced at least 5 or 6 big characters who are going to recur consistently, and I think the next session as well is going to introduce quite a big one as well. So it's that kind of a thing. I like to throw a lot at once, but you do it a bit more gently. You have maybe one per big quest.
I like to introduce a lot of characters who are in some way relatable, but in terms of characters that the players might remember for a long time, it's generally only 1 or 2 per adventure.
Yeah.
It's significantly smaller than the large number of characters that you introduce.
Yeah.
But then again, I suppose for you it kind of makes sense because you seem to have this larger overarching plot, whereas I do have a larger overarching plot with associated characters, but a lot of it is very small localized things.
Yeah. And
which will have their relevant characters.
Mine it takes place in one particular part of the world as well. It takes place in one city. You are going to bump into the same people over and over again, and they are going to be important and affect the world in a meaningful way because it's their city that they live in. And if they're an important figure in it, odds are you're going to meet up with them often.
Whereas I have you guys travelling all over.
Yeah.
Well, actually a very small part of the world, but still, a large amount of the southeastern corner of the continent to a variety of different biomes.
Yeah.
So what makes a good, memorable NPC?
I mean, the obvious answer that came to me is a daft voice. Not necessarily, but
not necessarily, but it's if that's something that you can do as a DM, just giving an NPC who is supposed to be memorable some kind of memorable trait is gonna make it easier for your players to remember them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the word memorable means.
Yeah.
So if you give them a daft voice or an accent, then it's easier for them to pick up on cues as to, this is a character we've seen before.
Yeah.
Although I kind of do daft voices for quite a lot of characters because I associate various accents with various species and cultural contexts within the world. For instance, I never quite figured out like the orcish class system and how that would affect the way that they talk, but most orcs talk like this.
Yeah.
You know, which makes sense in Meslin because you know they are supposed to be this this very, very, very working class and kind of downtrodden people there. Works less well in Varash, where they are like the ruling class.
Yeah.
And basically the mafia in most cases.
Have you never not thought about like maybe putting on like a like 30s gangster voice?
No, because I feel like aside from the comparisons to the mafia, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. No, I guess not. Yeah.
There's also like Dragonborn, which Beth's party have not met in grand numbers yet, but which the other party have. Dragonborn all talk like this.
Yeah.
So that they in fact walk through an entire village full of Dragonborn, all talking like this. Talked extensively with Shaman. And honestly, probably the worst one is the Varash accent, because basically the only thing that I know about Scandinavia is that a number of Scandinavian languages have trouble distinguishing between voiced and unvoiced S sounds. So, just end all sentences like this. It's not good,
No,
but
yeah.
it's a vocal tick enough that you can like actually distinguish. Oh, this person is from this place, which is a good like shorthand for okay, this is what this person's background is.
Yeah.
And generally, if there's only like one relevant character from each culture, it works quite well.
Yeah. I think my problem is I do get embarrassed sometimes doing voices, and it's something that I do like. It's something I struggle with, and I think sometimes, especially for Darius's patron, the warlock character, has a snake lady who's supposed to have this sort of Louisiana accent, but also be a snake. That's a really difficult voice to do, and I can't really do it. And it is something that I struggle with. I do get very embarrassed in small groups. On my own, I'm doing daft voices all the time, but it is something I struggle with. I think it's something that, I think it's something that everyone, stage fright, isn't it, really?
I mean, it's not like all of these terrible voices come naturally to me.
Yeah.
Something I decided pretty early on is the King of Varash, if you ever meet him, is basically Sir Christopher Lee. So for quite a while I was practicing, alright, this is my Sir Christopher Lee impression.
Yeah.
It's still not that good. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like you folks are going to meet the King of Varash anytime soon.
No. It can get really I think because as well I can't do voices, it gets really confusing when I have two NPCs talking back and forth, which is something that happens a lot in my game. I think especially in the last session with Rindle and Finian, who were talking quite back and forth quite a bit. I'm sort of always thinking I should probably give one of these men some sort of weird affectation, and I know that Finian's voice came off sounding really weird. Apparently, I don't know if that was.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Whatever. But
that's another good point. Is if you're going to be the DM, getting two NPCs to talk to each other, and they had better be saying something important, because this does not go down as well as you'd think it would.
No, yeah.
It's not actually incredibly interesting to watch the DM essentially talking to themselves.
Yeah.
So what they're saying, it has to be really important, and it has to be really important that it's acted out them saying it.
Yeah.
So generally, the only reason I would do a conversation like that is if the players... You know in Mass Effect, where there were, the Paragon and Renegade interrupts?
Yes.
Yeah. If the players can, step in and stop the conversation at a given point to affect a particular, idea, then maybe you would want to do that.
Yeah.
And in that case, it does help if you make the two characters have different character voices.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mean that they should have different accents, although that definitely does help, because it distinguishes the characters, but they should have different character voices.
Yeah.
As in, they should talk differently.
Yeah.
Which is something that is important to learn in all writing.
Oh, yeah.
I know that when I started out writing, and probably still, actually, I have a problem with the fact that all of my characters had essentially the same character voice coming from characters with different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, like, the whole changes in context of the characters were basically driving them being different people.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially when I write allistic people.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to just take something socially that doesn't make sense to me and be like, this character would let that go.
Yeah.
Or this character would not see the distinction between these two particular things, which is kind of tangential to what they're talking about, as important. Or stuff like that.
I mean, that's what writing fanfic's for, isn't it, really? Is to, because you become acquainted with certain characters and their voices, and then you can practice characters who have a different way of talking to each other back and forth. Like, for example, if you're writing Harry Potter fanfiction, Draco Malfoy doesn't say a sentence the same way that Ron might say a sentence, and Harry for that matter as well. Like, Ron doesn't tend to call Arthur father, he calls him dad, doesn't he? Whereas Draco is always going to go father. My father will hear about this, that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm. Something that came up in a recent Dumbing of Age, if any of you read that, Dina doesn't use contractions, and Sarah pointed that out. Like, Dina is always saying, I will not, instead of I won't, and stuff like that, up until the point where she's made to feel self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
It's just character voice, It's important, and it's actually kind of difficult to explain.
Yeah. It is. It's not an easy thing to explain, but hopefully you understand what we're trying to get across, is that some characters... That's right, you meet people who have very complex vocabularies and will say something that perhaps someone else might say a bit more simply, very complicated with lots of big words, and that's one way of,
And also those people will have different reasons for doing that, and that will inform... like some people will use big words because they think that saying big words makes them sound smarter.
Yeah.
Some people will say big words because they're very, very nitpicky about precision, and the simpler word means something very, very slightly different. Like, and people could also transition between those two states over the course of character development.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but, that's just character, voices in particular is something that it's important to kind of think this is how this character talks versus how perhaps this character talks. It is
really, really important to think about. And unfortunately, for characters who you, make up very, very quickly and want players to remember, but, haven't done a huge amount of, massive backstory for to determine what their character voice should be, it can be difficult. So I would advise you to decide all the affectations of the character that will come out immediately on the spot, and then, draw the target around those in terms of, writing backstory for that character if you need to. Rather than doing it the possibly, more intuitive other way around.
Yeah, there are certain traits that you can very quickly ascribe to characters to kind of figure out how they may talk, are they very well, are they incredibly well educated? Are they quite working class? Are they very emotional? Are they straightforward and to the point? Are they quite stoic? These are all things that are going to affect the way they say things, because people who are quiet and stoic are going to expend less energy talking and explaining things than perhaps someone who is a bit more confident and linguistically free and easy. Should we put it that way?
Bear in mind also that there's no reason that this stuff doesn't apply to player characters as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm having a huge amount of fun with player character voice in Beth's game.
Yeah.
Because Azrael is a very easy character to play in terms of what does he care about and how rude is he going to be about things he doesn't care about.
Yeah. I know that when I play Jay, I do this weird thing sometimes where I kind of go, dude, you're... I use a lot of outdated African-American vernacular. For whatever reason, it's just sort of, Jay uses, yo, man, or, what up, or hey, it's a very kind of almost anachronistic way of talking to people, so that it always sounds really out of place, but that's just what Jay feels like. I'm like, this is how this character would talk. And then as soon as Jay's getting down to business, really, like, we need to do this, we need to do that, but Jay's rarely like that.
Yeah. Asriel is like, does this pertain to my driving, like, ideal? Okay. If it doesn't, who do I think is being an asshole here? And to what extent? Because, you know, it's got to go pretty far before I really give a shit.
Yeah.
But he's not laid back. He's incredibly, like, uptight and just rude to pretty much everybody because he's completely, like, culturally dislocated.
Yeah.
So there's no real, like, people that he wants to, like, you know, defend.
Yeah.
To any great extent. He's not a pleasant character, but he's the kind of unpleasant character who has the potential to become a nicer person.
Yeah, that's why we love him. I think I was really surprised when Matt went from playing Silas to Darius. I was really surprised by, like, the difference in the voices that he does. Not that he ever puts on a particular, like, an accent or a silly voice or anything, but Silas is very airy-fairy. He's very you know, oh, I'm gonna go over here now. And Darius is very, like, expressive, but you know what I mean?
Darius would become indignant about things that Silas would not care about at all.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. We haven't unfortunately seen much of, like, because I feel like the two of you don't dominate a bit, you're not taking away any time, but the two of you just have a very, like, this is how this character behaves, or I feel like Jordan's character and Becca's character, they're completely out of their depth half of the time. They're just like, what is going on half the time?
I feel like Becca's character is defined enough that she will find her voice very soon.
Absolutely.
Jordan's possibly. I've not yet figured out exactly.
Jordan's is an interesting one, and I definitely, when the time comes, and when Jordan's character gets to show off a bit of his knowledge and expertise, you will see quite how well crafted that character was. So it's
possible that what Jordan's aiming for is pretty much the same role that Balasar says in my game, though, which is the basically straight man foil to everybody else.
Yes. Yeah,
which he was for a bit until he started, like, getting his own characterization, and then suddenly you get, okay, these are the annoying things that Balasar does.
Yeah.
And these are why he does them.
Yeah.
And if we can wheel around again, over a long period of time, you can do that with NPCs.
Absolutely,
as well. Now, there's got to be a reason, I think, for a given NPC to stick around a lot in the focus.
Because you don't want... I mean, every Dungeon Master's Guide goes, look, DM player characters are fine, but you can't have them stick around too long and overshadow everyone else.
DMPCs are not really a good idea.
No,
I don't
they're
think,
not.
Because, like, at the very least, what you're fucking up is you're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's like you can't take a, like, forefront position as a DMPC because, of course, you as the DM know what's going on.
Yeah.
Really, I think DMPCs work a lot better in terms of PCs, like NPCs who would come along with the party for any given reason. Like, maybe you added an escort mission to your game because you're fucking awful.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like, you have a guide for a particular thing. I've done a number of pretty classic scenarios, actually, which involve an NPC guide, at least for part of the adventure, just coming along. Either an academic who's doing, like, archaeology and stuff, or just somebody who knows the local area.
You know, I think really the max really you should have is I don't mind support fire generally. I don't mind an archer character who's just sort of going to stand in the background and fire arrows, because that's kind of an okay thing. That's not too bad. I think especially if you've got, like, big fights as well, you need NPC and, you know, PCs and stuff like that, but you can kind of pair the situation changes slightly, and so big battles are, you know, it's different and there's different ways of doing them.
Actually, one of my favourites is players arrive, unexpectedly rescue NPC, or are in the process of unexpectedly rescuing NPC who can hold their own and joins in combat-wise.
Yeah.
That's generally the way that Arthani is encountered in most of the games that I've run her in. There's one where it's not, but okay, Arthani. Arthani ineli ila'a ase ethi il-ar, whose name was generated by a tool and I found so hilarious I had to put into a game somewhere. Known as Arthani, is a halfling thief associated with the Green Hawk, who are the Thieves Guild in Meslin. And Arthani, I think, was my first attempt at a really memorable side character. And as such, she doesn't do a huge amount compared to other, possibly less memorable characters in that particular adventure. But she's a halfling thief. She's a very, very tall halfling thief for a halfling.
Yeah.
She has a silly voice. She talks in a Welsh accent. It has been a long time since I have voiced Arthani. I'm not going to do the voice now. She's met twice, generally. Well, 3 times, actually. The first time I ran the adventure, she was met once in the kitchens of a temple. Then a second time in the house where the garden party is set. She was actually like tied up in like webs in the basement because she had tried to get in and gotten herself entangled, and so the party save her, and that's, you know, she owes them a solid. And then later on, when the party get framed sort of for something that they actually did, Arthani just, you know, basically like rescues them.
Yeah.
And takes them away to the secret hideout. So Arthani hangs around a little bit, and that was why I wanted to give her like some kind of distinct character voice. She's indignant. She's pretty competent at what she does. I mean, I have notes here actually that for 2nd edition, she was deliberately given an extremely high dexterity so that she wouldn't suffer any penalty from dual-wielding push daggers, because I wanted that to be like her thing.
Yeah.
And also because it's not that hard to give a rogue like very high dexterity.
Yeah.
It's not that outlandish. So yeah, she's got this pretty huge bio. So I think that was there was also the attempt with Amaria in the very first scenario I wrote. But Amaria, at least the first time I ran that scenario, was kind of an in-joke because she was an ex-PC from like another
All right.
another game. So in fact, actually, Amaria has like one prosthetic leg, which is a reference to the fact that in the game in question, a giant golem fell on her and crushed her leg.
Yeah.
So, like the first time I, ran that scenario, obviously I was with the same group who had seen Amaria as a PC, so they got the joke.
Yeah.
Subsequently, she's just kind of a cool character who people can interact with if they like.
Yeah.
Then there's Sigrid, I guess, who is the leader of the rebellion in Varash. Sigrid did not get a huge amount of characterization until you guys came back.
Yeah.
Like, when you find Sigrid, it's like, okay, she is commanding, she is authoritative, but she's also in a very vulnerable position currently, and she needs to be rescued just because, you know, she's hated that much that they put her in this horrible torture device.
Yeah. There is a softness to Sigrid, and that's someone I really appreciate. She's very... There is a vulnerability to her, and I find that very... I don't know.
Anything vulnerable about Sigrid, it's that she's incredibly concerned about the amount of power she is having to amass in order to like actually fight the establishment in Varash. Like, she's definitely worried that she will be corrupted by that power, and she actually spends quite a bit of her time like making plans to like basically plotting her own demise to just ensure that she won't, like, you know, say kill the king and then just immediately take the throne.
Yeah.
She's very, very anxious about the idea of, like, people in positions of power within revolutionary groups essentially assuming the power that they supplant. Which, I guess, is part of me, in essence, even though I am not the leader of a revolutionary group. It's something I kind of think about a lot. So, that's another thing. When you're making significant player characters, you're writing any kind of character, you can put bits of yourself in the character. If there's a particular thing that you're worrying about a lot, well, it doesn't have to be worrying about, but, you know, that can be a character flaw for, you know, somebody if you're worrying about that a lot. Like, something that you think about a lot, being a character trait for a character that you're writing, that's good. That is a good thing. Because, you know, that's... Like, you will know how to write that. You might not know how to write that character doing the right thing about that thing, but you will know how to write that character behaving the way that you would on that subject, and only that subject. And then you can, like, split yourself up amongst all the characters you're writing, which is good, because it's better. Because otherwise, you're writing shit you haven't got a clue about.
Yeah.
That's crap.
Should I talk a bit about Eleanor and Slug?
Please talk about Eleanor. I love Eleanor.
Okay.
Azrael doesn't. Azrael hates
No,
Eleanor.
yeah, that's true, yeah. Eleanor Montreux, she... initially, she was kind of invented as this sort of Josephine Montilier-esque kind of character. She was this person who they were largely going to the group was going to be in contact with, and they were going to get jobs and missions. She slowly evolved, largely because of the player's interference, into kind of a manipulative chess master. But, like, also a good guy. You know, like... The general setup was, okay, what would motivate you to come to this town from so far away? And, you know, you had stuff like, oh, does she have information on this? And I'm like, yeah, sure, she's got that information on this. Yeah, okay, cool. That's the tiefling and the warlock sorted, cool. And then I went, well, she's probably going to bribe Becca's character because, you know, there's some blackmail going on there. Suddenly this character becomes a bit darker. And then there was the thing that you suggested, which was basically... You
said anything. So anything. I assumed at this point that M, as I knew her, was a pretty, like, moldable character in terms of what she was willing to do in order to get us all to, like, you know, assemble.
Yeah.
So, Eleanor, technically... Eleanor did not disinter the bones of Azrael's dead sister.
No, technically not, no.
But she made him believe that she had, and indeed somebody else did.
Yeah, like my logic from that was Eleanor would know the kind of... She would know that is the amount of rage she would have to incite in Azrael, and she went, it's probably better if he has a clear target on me as opposed to some asshole who he's never heard of before. This person who's contacting specifically, come get your dead sister, basically. But yeah. And she's someone who, you'll find out later, but this isn't really a spoiler since it's implied. She's someone who's made her fortune adventuring. And she's a lot less posh than she pretends to be.
Well, I think we kind of established that she's a lot less posh than she pretends to be, just because we know a little bit more about where she came from.
Yeah. So, you know, she's this kind of fancy lady who has a big house and a butler and lots, you know, she's got lots of fingers and lots of pots. I think at this point it would safe to kind of describe her more as an information broker and someone who kind of is trying to save the world, you know.
Imagine if you met Liara, but she was already the shadow broker.
Yeah.
That, you would fucking hate her.
You would, yeah. So yeah, she's this kind of haughty, kind of rich lady who, she's basically using her status as a noble to, like, make other people do her job for her. Like, that's how the level of influence this woman has. So yeah, but she's not all bad. She is very she's like, it started off as a bit of a joke, but I think very quickly it became kind of a serious thing that she kind of wants to like it's not like her main goal, but it's a side goal that she kind of wants to like have an orgy with the party. No, it's not like it is a weird thing. It's not gonna happen, but like...
Why does this always happen? Do you remember for the longest time my game had the meme about everybody gets in a bath together?
Yeah. You know, but it sort of started this... Like, she very offhandedly said about Thrai the Tiefling that, you know, you're my favourite, and then later on Jordan brought it up, and it was like... I'm really concerned about why he's her favorite, and I'm like, don't worry about it, it's fine.
And then there was also her like drastically misinterpreting Asriel's open expressions of hatred.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a very Draco Harry situation, isn't it? To an extent. It's like...
No, like, at the moment, it's honestly, like, she's fucking Mayor Dewey and he's Pearl.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah, no, yeah. Like...
But, like, he hates her even more, though, because he doesn't like the idea that she is in control.
Yeah.
So he really hates that he's been given this quest where it's like, it's something that he would do anyway.
Yeah.
But he's like, I don't want to do this thing that I would do anyway in such a way that implies to this woman that I am doing what she tells me to.
Yeah, yeah. She's very taunting and like...
I made that joke about how, like, afterwards, if they had mobile phones, she'd get the text from Life is Strange, by the way, thanks, but we're not friends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, She is the Max Caulfield to Asriel's Victoria. Which is the most ridiculous analogy ever, because I don't think she's anything like Max, but there you go.
I don't really think that Asriel's anything like Victoria, but it kind of works.
It does kind of work.
Anyway, who else is there? When I introduced the Emperor of Elves,
yeah,
I wanted him to be this... Well, that was the thing. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted him to be, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to engender a particular emotion in the party towards the Empire in general. It's like, Emperor Titus is not a nice man. He's ostensibly better politically than his opponent, who is, waging civil war against him, General Salvius. But it's like, what do I want the Emperor to be like? I don't want him to be too old, because he's not. His empire is very new.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to be too young either, because, the younger he's made, like, the more I have to stress the whole he was installed by power-hungry generals thing. And it's like, I kind of feel that at this point he would kind of broken out of that, and that's kind of why the Civil War is happening.
Yeah.
So, essentially what you get is this guy who looks to be, like, maybe in his early 30s. But obviously being an elf is way older. Yeah. And is just generally, like, not openly unpleasant, but deeply unhelpful.
Yeah.
That he's not going to give you anything.
Yeah. No, I get that, yeah. A very standoffish, very kind of keeping the party at arm's length, but not necessarily...
Well, not even that. It's just he's just acting chronically disinterested in anything that doesn't pertain directly to him that he is told by these people. Yeah. It's like they arrive, they're like, we have a message for you. He's like, cool, what is the message? Okay, that was the message, thank you. But do you want any kind of reward? And if you don't get one, are you going to come back and cause problems for me? Because we can sort something out now, but I don't particularly want to see any of you ever again.
Isn't that weird that I think that's what Yellow Diamond from Steven Universe is going to be a bit like?
I'm honestly really, really into meta that just has, like, Yellow Diamond be the ultimate disinterested, like, flip side to Pearl's PTA mum.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Like, Yellow Diamond's the ultimate, can I speak to the manager? Middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, yeah, the Emperor was a bit harder, because... It's like, once you get into points where you're like, I'm not sure what I want this character to represent, then you have troubles, because everything has to be themed. This is fiction. It doesn't... Like, small stuff you can probably get away with. I just want to make this character, and I don't really care how the players relate to them, because something will happen anyway.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's like, you have to have a plan for what happens if the players don't relate to that character the way that you think they would, but you really should, like, try and plan out, how do I want this character to be either representative or like deliberately non-representative of, what's actually behind them.
Yeah.
And when the characters in question control entire nations, it becomes kind of difficult. Like, I didn't even work out character voice for the King of Varash until I figured out, like, exactly what his deal is.
Yeah.
Because he was, for a long time, like, you never saw the king, you never heard about the king, you knew the king existed, but the clans controlled everything. And it was like the king was essentially a puppet. But now we've got the war going on where, like, the clans are openly waging war on the king in a bid for the throne, so now the king has to be his own character, where it's like, what does the king actually want? Why is he fighting all of these factions? Like, what will he do if he regains the throne, but the clans aren't there anymore? So, pay attention to what's going on in your game as well, and how that's going to affect, like, how characters you maybe previously haven't established a lot will change.
I know that, in Two Earth specifically, the king of the country that the characters are in has recently just died, and he was ousted, really. He was usurped, basically. He was like, we've had enough of this horrible war that's went on long enough. Nobody wants it anymore. We're getting rid of you, and we're putting your son on the throne. So you've got this fresh new king. But I'm always a bit puzzled on how to characterize him that isn't completely that isn't full of anachronisms, because, like, otherwise you're just going to walk into the throne room and he's going to be, like, kind of, like, leaning on the throne playing a Game Boy, and I don't think that really works. What do they call them?
I don't know. What you...
I don't know what I'm talking about, do I? Beatbox? Yeah, beatbox, right? Playing, like, rap music loudly, and you can't...
Boombox?
Boombox, there we go. Yeah, playing, like, rap music, and you can't really do that in... But, like, it's not even, like, an anachronism from, like, modern day. It's an anachronism from, like, the 80s, is what I want. Because I feel that... But you can't do that. It's not allowed. No.
No, not allowed.
Not allowed.
I had the worst trouble with Galliena until I actually figured out, like, what her deal was past being an evil for evil's sake villain. Which she initially was, but then I was like, none of what she's trying to do here makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Why is she trying to do it? Like, what is actually motivating? And we talked a lot about the kinds of things that will motivate a villain in the Villains podcast, but it's like, once I had that figured out, I was like, okay, this is why she wants to do that thing. It is up to the players whether they think that's a reasonable response or not. The players don't know what the thing that is making her do the thing is, so they can't immediately, like, connect the dots, but I can, like, derive most of her personality from this.
Yeah.
There was some stuff I knew already, but then, like, figuring out the big secret behind what her deal is was like, okay, this is why she relates to these groups of people this way. She's turned up quite a lot in the Tuesday game, but not, like, for anything significant, mainly for, essentially being involved in the succession crisis involving her brother and being like, I don't want to be emperor.
Yeah.
Don't try and make me empress, because it won't work. I'm not going to, like, reassume my citizenship. I'm not going to be associated with this shit at all. Figure it out yourselves.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very interesting when our group gets to the Empire, because, I mean, we're not going to put Galliena on the throne, presumably. I know the others want to start a revolution, but we'll just have to wait and see what Jay does. So it's yeah.
I feel like at some point very soon, Galliena is actually going to, like, straight up tell Jay what her deal is. And
yeah.
then bad things might happen.
So, yeah.
So, like, it does help to have some recurring characters. And also, if there's a role in a particular place that needs to be filled by a character, you could make a new character, or you could bring back a character that your players already know and like.
Yeah, but
know and dislike.
Yeah, it does have to make sense, because you can't have, say, like...
I have wanted Arthani to turn up in so many places that, like, don't make sense.
I know, yeah. I know, like, it's, there's, like, one very specific character, but, like, it doesn't make sense for you to meet them here yet, so you can't, basically, but it's, yeah.
It's like, if it makes sense, if you're in the area, then why not?
Yeah.
There is one character I have been having like kind of follow the players around to an extent, just because it made sense for her to go to the place where they were going. And one player in particular is like incredibly distressed that this person is following them around, and became more distressed upon learning like who she is. It's very funny. I mean, like, I suppose it's kind of less funny in that the player character in question was like, mildly physically assaulted by the character in question.
God.
Well, no, not anything like,
No,
actually abusive. It was mainly that the NPC in question revealed information inscribed upon the body of the PC in question without consent.
Oh man, yeah.
Essentially because like the PCs were actively trying to hide that information from people who should probably know about it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I know you met a Lethargo slug in your first session. I don't think he's going to show up again.
Asriel hated Lethargo.
I know, it was awful.
Asriel was like, now you're a human, Lethargo, you can just dig holes all the time. Because I fucking hate you.
Yeah, Lethargo slug was a druid who could turn into a giant African land snail. And appeared as such, and like the setup was that it like you turned up and there was just a snail in a box, and you were like, what? And then of course the snail starts to talk, and you have to deliver it to a specific place. And then he turned into a human, and there were so many questions. Why didn't you walk yourself? Why this? Why that? And he was just like,
do you work for this M person?
Yeah.
Kind of. I immediately hate you.
But yeah, it's he's got a like his motivations where he used to be linked to the villain. He wants to stop the villain. And
oh yeah, of course that's another thing Asriel doesn't like. He's like linked to the two people who Asriel definitely doesn't like.
Yeah. So it's that was
Yeah, it's like, don't let these characters like overshadow the PCs, especially if you have a strong crop of PCs who are like very well played characters.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to have some characters actually like be memorable to the players, especially if they fulfill important roles, like Galliena does as like overarching arc villain.
Yeah. And it's NPCs can be used to kind of help players get out their shell a bit when it comes to role-playing a bit as well. If they have to interact with someone who's a bit strange or a bit unusual, particularly NPCs that either are very secretive and won't reveal information easily, or NPCs that themselves are very charismatic and very good at weeding information out of the player characters. So yeah.
Don't be afraid to associate running jokes with these characters.
Yes.
For a very long time, the running joke associated with Aletia the Enchantress is that as soon as she starts to tell you something maybe important, she just completely packs up and disappears.
I know. Yeah, I know that. Our joke with Galliena is that she's Peridot now. Like
Which is kind of like not like she's kind of acts like it, but she's significantly more powerful than Peridot.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, she could kick
like
our
pissing
asses.
her off is a really bad idea. So it's really funny that Silas did that again, remotely. Like they weren't even in the same country.
I know, but that's some of the I mean, I guess we should probably touch upon villains a little bit. We have talked about this topic extensively.
It's like villains count as memorable characters, especially when they're recurring villains.
And I think, especially, they're probably going to be the bulk of your recurring characters as well as villainous characters rather than heroic ones.
Like you are going to have recurring like heroes, people who will help with things, but fewer of them generally. So it's mainly going to be villains.
Yeah.
Or occasionally like neutral characters who are difficult to interact with.
Yes.
So like oracles or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Something you can do, and again, this does involve getting NPCs to interact with each other, so I would discourage doing it a lot. But something I have done in the past that you can do is if you have a those two guys.
Yeah, ah, yes.
Or not even are those two guys. That, like, Disney movies trope of the two characters who work together in close proximity for, like, a long time, but don't necessarily get on that well.
Yeah.
Not even Disney movies, actually. Like, Newton Geisler and Herman Gottlieb from Pacific Rim are the kind of trope I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, like, there was a point where the Tuesday group came across a library which had these two elves in it who did not really like each other at all, but were forced to work together as joint librarians.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that kind of dynamic is that it kind of forces the players to make a decision. Like, they really have three choices. They can side with a character, or they can deliberately not.
Yeah.
Two of the choices are, like, the characters in question, obviously. Which is, like, kind of an instant way of establishing character dynamics. It's kind of cheap, but it's also effective.
Yeah.
Especially if you make the two characters, like, different in the ways that they would relate to the PCs as well, and how forthcoming they're going to be about a certain thing.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a huge amount to say about this topic. It's something that probably, if you have any compulsion to be creative as a DM, will come to you.
Yeah.
Just generally. You will want to make some kind of memorable character, and I'm just warning you, don't let them overshadow the PCs.
Yeah.
Don't have your memorable characters talk to each other for too long unless the players can interact with that conversation. And otherwise, try and give them as many defining features as possible, because if you can do voices, all the better.
Yeah.
One I've particularly liked that I forgot to mention is that pretty much all of my dwarves are varying levels of quality of impressions of Brian Blessed.
I think every tabletop game, any role-playing game really, it has to have someone trying to do a Brian Blessed voice, and I think
at some point, somewhere, yes.
And all the better if it's a dwarf, quite frankly, because he does.
All the better if it's all dwarves.
Yeah, because Brian Blessed does kind of look like a really big dwarf, like an alpha dwarf almost.
Yeah, Brian Blessed is a very tall man, but his width and bulk don't make him really look it.
No, yeah, but it's like, he works well in like a lot of other like sci-fi settings, but yeah, fantasy settings in particular, he's very, very good.
And it's just really fun to play, like, either NPCs or PCs as the kind of massive ham that Brian Blessed has made a career out of being.
Absolutely. I know that I do have quite a few characters, like, there's this trope that I absolutely love called incoming ham, and it's where you hear a character before you see them, and I love that trope so much. It is, you've met one in particular, her name is Catherine, because I know you heard her crying before you did. That is not, like, an unusual thing for Catherine. She's a very loud character. And I know Vrindle is a very loud character as well, because I think you were introduced to him yelling at someone like an angry PTA mum. Yelling at a Starbucks barista, so...
Yes. Which, like, gave rise to Azrael's apparent now catchphrase, "Are you going to kill this man? Because we need to speak to him."
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I mean that, I feel like that's something that's very common in 2Earth, is like people threatening to kill people who are just trying to do their jobs. They're just trying. And these incredibly aggressive NPCs keep coming in and demanding to know what's going on. Yeah. Shiminasu man, he just wants to marry some people. Man with donkey just wants to do his desk job.
I should point out that Man with Donkey is a separate character. Shaman Asuman does not want to marry a man to a donkey.
No, but... like, yeah, like, that's, it's separate thing. I mean, Shaman Asuman probably would do that if, like, the correct legislation were in place. Like, yeah. If he lived in a place where that was legal, he would marry a man to a donkey, almost definitely. But I do, I mean, like,
presumably, if asked, he wouldn't just go around like.
Oh yeah. He's not like.
Like forced marriages of man and donkey.
You get a marriage. You get a marriage. All of you get a marriage to a donkey specifically.
Okay. But yeah, as I said, this is the kind of thing that will probably just come to you. Maybe not the donkey thing.
Yeah.
But have fun with it. Really, this is your like opportunity as a DM to be performative in the way that normally the players only get to be. So do it.
Yeah.
Grab it. You know, take it by the horns and other mixed metaphors.
Yeah. Do it.
Okay.
Make your dreams come true.
Okay, Beth has begun memeing, so we're going to end the podcast now. No memes. Get rid of all the memes off my podcast.
I would look. If I was a Batman villain, my name would be the Memer, and I would be like the Riddler, but with memes. And I think everyone knows that.
This is the fucking worst, and it would be like an incredibly popular issue, and that would be bad because it would not deserve to be.
I know, yeah. I think my calling, like, you know which meme I absolutely fucking hate. I would definitely incorporate into my supervillain routine. It's the fucking rare Pepe shit, right? That would be my calling card. Like you know that scene in Batman. Is it Batman and Robin or is it Batman Forever? I don't know. The one with the Riddler and Two-Face in. I don't know what it is.
See, the problem is I remember both of those films separately, but I can't remember which one was called Batman and Robin and which one was called Batman Forever. No. Because as far as I remember, they both had Robin in them. So
yeah. Well, they did both have Robin in them. I think Batman and Robin was the one with Batgirl in, and the one with Poison. Anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. Anyway, but the Riddler, played by Jim Carrey, who, I mean, really, I feel like the Riddler played by Jim Carrey really should have been the Memer, but, like, this was the 90s. We did not
have the meme technology yet.
Exactly. So I'll fucking end the podcast. I can't do this shit anymore.
No, keep going. How does this end?
There's this moment, I think it's like with like a Jack in a Box, or, Pop Go the Weasel kind of thing. And if it were the Memer, you would do that, and then it would pop out, and it would just be Rare Pepper. But also, it wouldn't be Pop Goes the Weasel, it would be Never Gonna Give You Up, obviously.
For fuck's sake. See, at one point, like, the Memer would just do the non-pizza with left beef meme, and nobody would laugh, because that meme isn't fucking funny.
That isn't a funny meme, no.
It doesn't make any sense. It's vaguely disquieting.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be like, the point in the third act where suddenly the Memer gets serious. I'm going to do disquieting memes now, so you feel a bit uncomfortable instead.
Yeah.
Please hire us, DC.